Veil of the fallen gods. I never believed in gods. I never believed in monsters. I never believed that the world I knew was a fragile illusion stitched together by stories too old to be true. But the night I saw the first shadow break through the city skyline, I learned that belief was a luxury I could no longer afford. It started in the alley behind my apartment, a place I had passed 1,000 times without noticing the smell of decay that lingered in the corners, without noticing the whispers in the wind that seemed like a language I almost remembered. I was walking home, tired from a job I hated, my coat collar pulled tight against the wind, my ears filled with the distant hum of neon lights, when I heard a sound that was neither human nor animal, a vibration deep in my chest that made my teeth hum. I froze, staring at the darkness between the dumpsters, and then I saw him, or it, or whatever he was, a figure tall beyond comprehension, cloaked in shadow that flickered like smoke, eyes burning amber like fire trapped in ice. I wanted to run, I wanted to scream, but something inside me, the part of me that had always longed for stories greater than my own life, stood still. The figure spoke, but it was not words. It was thought, a voice that pierced my skull and wrapped around my mind, an invitation and a warning all at once. You were always meant to see this, it said, and the alley went silent, but the air itself felt heavy with expectation. And then it vanished, leaving me alone, trembling, with the sense that the city itself had shifted in ways I could not yet understand. I tried to tell myself it was a hallucination, a trick of exhaustion and streetlights, but when I looked at my hands, they were shaking in ways they had never shaken before, and I realized that my heartbeat was echoing in a rhythm that belonged to something older than humanity. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked the streets, listening, waiting, knowing that my life had already changed. The next morning, the headlines told of shadows moving against the sun, people missing, strange lights hovering over the city. No one believed the stories. No one could see what I had seen. But I did not need validation. I knew the veil had torn. And then they came more than shadows. More than myths, children of gods fallen from their thrones, lost in the world of men, searching for something they had forgotten, or perhaps something I carried unknowingly in my blood. One of them found me first. A girl with hair like molten silver and eyes like storm clouds, standing silently on my balcony before dawn, smiling in a way that made the air shiver. "You're awake," she said, and I realized that she didn't mean my sleep. She meant me, the real me, the me that had been asleep to the truth of the world, the me that had never known that gods could fall and walk among us, disguised, searching, hunting. And in that moment, I understood that my life, mundane, predictable, lonely, was over. Because I had been chosen not by chance, but by destiny. Older than cities, older than the mountains themselves. She extended a hand, and I wanted to flee, to hide, to deny what I could not yet name. But something inside me, the thrill, the fear, the longing, pulled me forward. And as I took her hand, the world tilted, and I felt the weight of eternity press down on my shoulders, a responsibility I had not asked for and could never escape. The city around us flickered, shadows stretching impossibly long, and I saw them, figures in the distance, watching, waiting. Gods, in forms I could scarcely comprehend, their faces both beautiful and terrifying, their presence a promise and a curse. They did not speak, they only looked, and I knew that everything I had believed about life, about power, about survival, was about to be rewritten. And as the sun rose, spilling light over streets that would never be the same again, I realized that I had stepped through a door I could never close, into a world where myths were real, where gods walked among mortals, and where I, an ordinary person who had never even believed in magic, would be the one they could not ignore. The girl squeezed my hand, a spark of warmth and danger all at once, and whispered, "You have to come. They are coming." And in that instant I understood. There was no turning back. I was awake now, and the world would never forgive me for that. I followed her through the labyrinth of the city, the streets twisting in ways I had never noticed before, alleys opening where there had been walls, shadows bending around corners as if they were alive. My heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat, echoing the rhythm of some ancient war I had never fought. and yet I felt the weight of it in my bones, as if every step I took was already written in a story that had begun before I was born. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper against the hum of the city. She didn't answer immediately, only looked at me with eyes that seemed to read the parts of myself I had hidden even from myself. "Names are dangerous," she finally said, "and you have none that matter here. You are awake. That is enough for now." Awake. I had thought I was awake before, but this was something different. This was a consciousness stripped bare, a realization that the world I had trusted was a mask, a veil hiding things too vast to imagine. She led me to a courtyard hidden in the heart of the city, a place where the light of day was swallowed by towers of stone etched with symbols I could not name, but somehow recognized, as if they were buried in my memory. And there, waiting like statues that had stepped out of legend, were more of them, children of gods, each one different, each one a shard of something immense, something terrible. One was laughing, but the sound carried no joy, only the thrill of something beyond mortal reckoning. Another was kneeling, tracing lines in the air that shimmered with faint light, casting shapes that seemed to twist and writhe like living shadows. I wanted to look away, to hide, but the girl, my guide, my warning, my anchor, placed a hand on my shoulder. "They are not all enemies," she said, "but none of them are safe. You must learn quickly. Learn." I didn't even know what I needed to learn. My name, my life, my past, everything seemed meaningless now. And yet, beneath my fear, beneath my something stirred. A curiosity, a spark that had been smoldering my whole life, unlit, until now. "Why me?" I asked, my voice trembling. She tilted her head, and for a moment, I saw the faintest flicker of sadness, or perhaps regret. "Because you remember, others have forgotten. The world forgets what it fears, what it cannot control. You remember." And in that moment, I felt a memory surface that was not mine alone. A war, long ago, fought in skies I had never seen, fought by beings whose names had been erased from history. I saw flames that were not fire, so armies of light and shadow clashing in silence. And I understood that what was happening now was only the echo of that battle, repeating, reshaping itself in a world too small to contain it. She led me to a wall, carved with a doorway I could not see through, yet I felt its pull in my chest. "You will need to open it," she said. "But first, you must face them." And suddenly, they moved. The children of gods, the fallen ones, the echoes of eternity, turned toward me as if aware of the decision I had yet to make. My instinct was to flee, but the girl's grip was iron, her gaze a tether. "You cannot run," she said. "Not anymore. They will find you wherever you go." I felt the first brush of fear that was different from the others, pure, unshakable, a cold that seeped into my very marrow. And then it began. They circled, whispered in voices that scraped against my mind, offering power, offering visions of impossible things, offering promises I could not refuse, yet knew I must. One stepped forward, a boy with hair like ash and eyes like molten silver. "You are human," he said, "but not for long. Do you wish to see what you could become?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to refuse. But curiosity, that fatal, foolish thing, pricked at me like a needle in my chest. I nodded, barely realizing I had, and the world shivered. The courtyard twisted, the sky tearing open in a rift of color and light that made me dizzy. And I felt a pulse beneath my feet, a heartbeat that was not mine, yet I carried it. Now, a rhythm that promised both creation and destruction. The girl whispered in my ear, "Hold on. Do not let them break you. But do not fight them yet. Learn, remember." And as the first of them reached toward me, I felt a surge of something ancient stir inside, a memory of power, of blood, of choices made long before I had lived. My hands glowed faintly, and I realized that I was not entirely human. Something that slept within me, hidden, had awakened. And with it, the understanding that nothing would ever be the same again. They smiled not cruelly, not kindly, but with the knowing of beings who had seen the end of worlds and the birth of new ones, and I understood that my journey had truly begun. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. And as the shadows of the fallen gods closed around me, I took a breath, my heart hammering, and stepped forward into a reality had only glimpsed in dreams. A reality that would demand everything from me, and perhaps more than I could ever give. The courtyard dissolved around me, shadows stretching like living smoke, twisting into forms I could barely comprehend. My heartbeat throbbed in my ears as the children of gods closed in, their movements fluid, unnatural, as if gravity itself obeyed them. I tried to steady my breath, to remind myself I was human, but the word felt hollow. I was more now, and I could feel it. A pulse beneath my skin that was not mine. A vibration that hummed with knowledge I had never learned, yet somehow understood. The girl's grip tightened on my wrist. "You must focus," she said. "Do not let them see fear. Fear will eat you faster than any of them can." I looked into the eyes of the first one advancing toward me, the boy with ash hair and molten silver eyes, and I realized I was seeing through him, glimpsing memories that were not mine, visions of a war older than cities, of gods falling and rising, of fire and ice that shaped the bones of the world. My hands began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter, as if the memory inside me demanded release. I felt a surge of energy, raw and uncontained, and it scared me. I wanted to scream, to run, to deny it, but the girl whispered, "Let it out. You are ready." I closed my eyes, and the power inside me erupted. Shadows recoiled, twisting, writhing, as though the very air had remembered some ancient law I had unlocked. The children of gods faltered, surprise flashing in their eyes. And then the boy stepped back, and a voice echoed, not his, not mine, but from everywhere at once. "At last," it said, a low vibrating tone that made the ground shiver beneath us. "The human remembers." I opened my eyes, and the courtyard had transformed. The walls were no longer stone, but bone, with runes that glimmered like molten gold. Shadows stretched into towers, into forests, into impossible geometries that made my stomach lurch. I realized then that this was not a test, not a game. They were showing me what the world had been, what it could become, and what I could become. One of the girls, hair like liquid night, stepped closer, her voice a whisper that carried like thunder. "You awakened too quickly," she said. "Do you know what it means to awaken?" I shook my head, though part of me already knew. To awaken was to remember, to bear the weight of knowledge, to see the hidden machinery of reality, and understand that it could devour you as easily as it could empower you. I felt it then, the pull of destiny, a thread connecting me to every god who had fallen, every mortal who had been touched by their hands, every shadow that had walked between worlds. The boy with ash hair raised a hand, and the ground beneath us split, a fissure glowing with red light, heat radiating in waves. "Show them," he said, "what it means to be human." And more. I realized he was not testing me anymore. He was challenging me. And in that moment, something inside me shattered, a wall I didn't know I had built, and the power within me flowed freely. Shadows fled, wind tore through the courtyard, and I felt the pulse of the earth itself answering my heartbeat. The girl screamed not in fear, but in exhilaration. "Yes, remember everything." And I did. I remembered the wars of gods, the bargains made and broken, the sacrifices of mortals who had carried divinity unknowingly, the secret bloodlines, the hidden prophecies. My mind expanded and contracted at once, like a storm and a heartbeat intertwined. The children of God circled me, no longer hostile, but curious, wary, tasting the power I had unlocked. The ash-haired boy smiled, a flicker of respect in his molten silver eyes. "Perhaps you are not like the others," he said. "Perhaps you are more." I felt it then, the weight of the words. More. I was human, but I was also something ancient, something that had slept in the world for centuries, waiting for the spark to ignite. And the girl, anchor in this chaos, whispered again, "This is only the beginning. You will be hunted. You will be tested. You will see things you cannot unsee. But remember this, you are not alone. Not yet." And as the first rays of sunlight pierced the fissures of the courtyard, illuminating shadows that should not exist, I understood that I had stepped into a war. I had no choice to fight, a destiny I could not refuse, and a power that could destroy or save everything. I clenched my fists, feeling the surge of energy, and smiled not because I was unafraid, but because I knew that at last I was awake, and the world, the gods, the children of gods, and I would never be the same again. The night fell like a shroud, and the city seemed to hold its breath. I walked beside her, all still echoing the rhythm of the awakening inside me. The girl did not speak much, only moving with a precision and confidence that made me feel both protected and painfully aware of my own vulnerability. Shadows stretched long across the streets, bending unnaturally, whispering secrets I was only beginning to understand. And then I saw them, others like me, or perhaps not like me at all. Children of gods, scattered through the city, their presence like a warning etched into every street lamp, every shuttered window. One of them stepped forward, a boy with eyes black as onyx, and his smile was a blade. "I've been waiting for you," he said, his voice carrying through my skull, bypassing my ears entirely. "You're not supposed to awaken alone." My hands tingled, the residue of power from the courtyard still pulsing, and I realized he could feel it, sense it, fear it perhaps. The girl's grip on my arm tightened. "Do not underestimate them," she whispered. "Each one carries a fragment of the old world. They will test you. Some will try to destroy you. Others will try to recruit you. You must choose. Choose." The word felt heavier than any stone I had ever lifted. I realized then that everything I had believed about morale, about right and wrong, was already fracturing. Survival was no longer about fleeing danger, it was about navigating a world ruled by beings older than time itself. The onyx-eyed boy circled me, his movement graceful, predatory. "They call you awake," he said. "Do you know what that means? Do you know what it will cost you?" I wanted to speak, to assert my humanity, but the words died in my throat. Instead, I felt it, the pull of the ancient power inside me, the surge of knowledge and memory and force that demanded release. My eyes glowed faintly, catching his attention, and for a moment I saw something shift in him, a flicker of doubt. And then the city erupted. Shadows peeled from the walls, twisting into serpentine forms, striking at him before I could even think. I gasped, realizing that the power was responding to my fear, my anger, determination. The girl shouted, "Control it. Focus it." I clenched my fists, and the shadows recoiled, bending to my will, shaping themselves into shields, into weapons, into a wall of force that separated us from the others. The onyx-eyed boy laughed, a sound that sent chills crawling along my spine. "Interesting," he said. "You can wield it, but do you understand it? Do you even know what you are?" I didn't, but I would. I would learn. And as he vanished into the dark, leaving only the echo of his laughter and a trail of bending shadows, I understood that the game had begun in earnest. We moved through the city, the girl leading, me following, every corner a potential ambush, every shadow a question I could not answer. And then I felt it, a pulse, deep beneath the streets, a heartbeat not mine, ancient and relentless. "What is that?" I asked. She looked at me, eyes flashing with something I could not name. "The heart of the old world," she said. "And it calls to you." I realized then that my awakening was not complete. I had tasted power, yes, but I had not yet faced the true test. Somewhere in the city, beneath the asphalt and concrete, beneath the neon glow and the sleeping citizens, lay a force that could either consume me or grant me what I had only glimpsed in memory. And I knew, with a certainty that was terrifying and exhilarating, that the onyx-eyed boy and the others were not the only threat. Time itself, history itself, the echoes of fallen gods, they would all converge on me. And if I survived, I would never be the same. My hands tingled again, a reminder of the power I carried, and I gripped them, testing, feeling, reaching. I was afraid, yes, but fear was no longer paralyzing. It was fuel. I had been chosen, marked, awakened. And now I would walk into the heart of the city, into the heart of the storm, to face whatever waited, knowing that every step I took would reshape the world. And as we descended into the first subway tunnel, shadows twisting around the walls like serpents, I felt the first whisper of destiny brush against my mind, a promise that nothing I had known before would save me, and that everything I would learn here would demand a price I was only beginning to understand. The subway tunnel was suffocating, the air thick with dust and something older, something alive. I could feel it crawling beneath my skin, a pulse that matched the beat of my own heart, only deeper, slower, more patient. The girl moved ahead, silent, her presence a calm anchor in the chaos that roared inside me. Then I saw them, figures stepping from the shadows, their forms shifting, bodies elongated, eyes gleaming with an unholy light. The onyx-eyed boy led them, his smile a blade cutting through the darkness. "Welcome," he said, voice echoing against the concrete, "to what you cannot escape." I felt the energy inside me flare, responding to the threat, bending reality around my fingertips. Shadows twisted into weapons, coils of dark force, snapping and striking before I even thought them. The girl shouted, "Remember what you felt in the courtyard. Channel it. Do not hesitate." Hesitate? I had no choice. They attacked, and the tunnel became a battlefield of light and shadow, of power too immense to be named. The onyx-eyed boy moved like a storm, swift and merciless, and I realized that I had never truly fought before. Every instinct I had relied on, every skill I had learned in my ordinary life, was meaningless here. Only the awakening mattered, only the pulse inside me that could reach out and shape the world itself. I lashed out, shadows striking, twisting, weaving around them, deflecting blows I could not fully comprehend. One of the children fell back, stunned, and I glimpsed fear, a rare thing among them. Another lunged, and my instincts responded, shaping darkness into a shield that splintered around us, fragments of shadow raining like shards of glass. Pain struck me then, sharp, sudden, a hand of one of them pressing against my chest, and I felt blood, warm and real, my first tangible reminder that I was still human. I cried out, not from fear, but from the realization that power had a cost, and the world I had stepped into did not forgive mistakes. The girl screamed my name, and I drew it in, pulling everything I could summon, letting the pulse inside me erupt. The tunnel shivered, cracks running along the walls as if the very earth recognized the force being wielded. The onyx-eyed boy grinned, impressed, intrigued. "You are stronger than I thought," he said, eyes glinting. "Perhaps. You are exactly what is needed." And then the truth hit me, clear and cold. The fight was not just for survival. They were testing me, yes, but they were also trying to bend me, shape me, recruit me to a power I did not yet understand. And I had a choice I could barely fathom: succumb, resist, or seize control for myself. I shouted, feeling the shadows respond to my will, and I struck back with everything I had, a torrent of dark force that threw them against the walls, scattering the group. The onyx-eyed boy vanished into the darkness, leaving only the echo of his laughter and a trail of fractured shadows. I collapsed against the wall, breathing hard, trembling from the exertion and the fear, and realized that I had survived. But survival was only the beginning. The girl knelt beside me, her hands glowing as she healed the shallow cuts I had received, her eyes reflecting both pride and worry. "This is only the first step," she said. "They will come again, stronger, faster, smarter, and next time, you may not be ready." I wanted to ask her what they wanted, what their true goal was, but she shook her head. "Not yet. You need strength first, understanding later. Remember, the world has always been hungry for those who awaken. You are the spark. They are the fire, and fire consumes everything." Nodded, understanding more than I wanted to. My hands still hummed with residual energy, a reminder that the awakening was ongoing, that I was no longer entirely human, and that whatever was coming would demand more than courage, it would demand everything. And as we exited the tunnel into the empty streets of the city, at the first light of dawn cutting across the skyline, I knew the truth. The children of gods were only the beginning. Something older, something hungrier, was awakening as well, and I would be the one standing in its path. I had been chosen, marked, and awakened. There was no turning back. Not for me, not for the city, not for the world. The streets were empty, but the city felt alive, as if it were breathing beneath my feet, whispering secrets I could almost understand. The girl led me through back alleys and hidden stairways, her movements precise, urgent. "We have to find them," she said, and I understood immediately them were others like me, humans who had awakened, or partially awakened, touched by fragments of godhood. She stopped at an old building, its windows shattered, walls blackened by fire long past. Inside, a dim light flickered, casting shadows that danced across peeling wallpaper and broken furniture. And there, they were a small group, huddled together, each one marked by the same awakening I felt, yet each one different. One was a tall woman, with eyes like molten gold, hands trembling, but glowing faintly. Another, a boy barely 16, his hair silver, trembling with fear and power. A man older, grizzled, scarred, carrying the air of someone who had survived impossible things. They looked at me, suspicion and awe mixing in their expressions. "Who are you?" the golden-eyed woman asked, her voice wary. I opened my mouth, then realized names were meaningless here. "I'm awake," I said finally, and the words hung in the air like a challenge. The girl beside me nodded. "He's the one we've been waiting for," she said. "The spark that can guide or destroy. But he needs training, protection, and understanding." And so it began. Days blurred into nights as we moved through the city, seeking knowledge, unlocking fragments of power, facing the children of gods in small skirmishes that left us bruised, bloodied, and alive. Each encounter revealed more. Their intentions were not simple. They were searching for something buried in the city, in the veins of the earth, perhaps even within us. And the more I learned, the more I realized the cost. Power was not free. Every awakening demanded sacrifice. Every surge of force left a mark, a memory, a piece of your soul that could not be reclaimed. One night, as we rested in the basement of an abandoned church, the boy with silver hair whispered, "Do you ever wonder if we're meant to fail?" I looked at him, feeling the weight of truth in his words. "I don't know," I said. "But I do know that we have to try. Otherwise, what?" The thought lingered, a shadow across my mind. And then it happened. The walls trembled, the air grew thick with energy, and a presence older than the city itself pressed against us, testing us, watching us. The girl shouted, "They've found us." Shadows coalesced into forms I had never imagined, moving with a grace and malice that made my stomach twist. The golden-eyed woman stood, trembling but fierce. "We fight together," she said. "All of us," and we did. The basement became a storm of light and shadow, power and instinct, each of us shaping the world with our will, every move a question of survival. I felt the pulse inside me, stronger than ever, connecting with theirs, connecting with the city, the earth, the air. We were not just humans anymore. We were fragments of the old world, fragments that could shape the new. And in that chaos, in the heat of battle, I saw it the first betrayal. One of the awakened, a boy with dark eyes, smiled as he struck at our line, his power twisting against us, and I realized that awakening could corrupt, could seduce, could destroy as easily as it could save. Pain lanced through me, sharp and real, but the girl's voice cut through the noise. "Remember who you are. Remember why you awaken." I felt the pulse surge, felt the shadows bend to my will, felt the world respond, and with it, we pushed back, reclaiming the basement, reclaiming ourselves. But the betrayal lingered, a poison in our midst, a reminder that even among the awakened, trust was fragile, fleeting, dangerous. And as the city settled into a tense silence, broken only by distant echoes of movement above, I knew one truth with absolute certainty: the war for the city, for the awakening, for the legacy of the gods, had only just begun. And if we were to survive, if we were to shape the world instead of being consumed by it, we would need to be stronger, smarter, united, and merciless. We moved through the city under the cover of night, shadows clinging to us like living armor, every step a calculated risk. The girl led, silent and confident, her senses stretched beyond mine, reading the air, the walls, the vibrations of the streets. I followed, my own pulse thrumming with the awakening inside me, aware that every heartbeat could be heard by those attuned to the old powers. The betrayed boy had disappeared after the basement battle, but the memory of his smile lingered, a knife in my chest, reminding me that trust was a fragile luxury. Our target was an artifact, older than the city itself, buried in the catacombs beneath the ruins of a forgotten cathedral. Legends whispered that it held the remnants of divine essence, a fragment of a god's soul, powerful enough to bend the fabric of reality. If the children of gods found it first, the world would shatter. We descended through broken stairways, tunnels slick with age and decay, my hands glowing faintly as they brushed against walls etched with symbols that thrummed under my touch. "Be careful," the girl whispered. "It reacts to those who awaken." I understood immediately. The artifact was alive, in some sense, sensing power, judging worth, tempting weakness. As we entered the heart of the catacombs, I saw it a crystalline structure, pulsing with light that seemed to draw the shadows toward it, and I felt its pull, a hunger that resonated with the pulse in my own chest. "Stay back," I said instinctively, raising my hands, and the shadows around me obeyed, curling into shields, barriers, a storm of dark energy. But then, I sensed them others approaching, more children of gods, drawn like moths to a flame. The onyx-eyed boy had returned, leading a pair of twisted, dark-eyed figures, their forms elongated, unnatural, each step carrying menace. "I wondered how long it would take you to find this place," he said, voice low, dripping amusement. "Do you feel it? The pull? It calls to you, and it calls to me." I stepped forward, the pulse of power inside me resonating with the artifact, my hands reaching out, trembling, uncertain if I was strong enough. And then the first strike came, a shadow like a whip, lashing at my chest. I countered instinctively, shaping darkness into a shield that splintered and reformed, deflecting the blow. The fight erupted, a storm of energy, light, shadow, screams, and power that warped the catacombs. The golden-eyed woman stood beside me, shaping energy into blades, while the silver-haired boy's trembling hands unleashed fire that hissed along the walls. The older man moved with brutal precision, striking with the force of someone who had survived countless battles. And all the while, the artifact pulsed, its light shifting, reacting, growing brighter, hungrier. I felt it inside me, the connection deepen, knowledge and power surging, but also danger, too much, too fast. I glanced at the onyx-eyed boy, who was laughing, dancing around, attacks, testing me, tempting me. "Do you know what it will take to claim it?" he taunted. "Sacrifice, blood, a piece of your soul." I understood then. He wasn't just fighting, he was trying to break me, to see how far I would go. And I felt a surge of defiance. I could feel the pulse inside me, not just my own, but shared with my team, our energies intertwined. I drew it fully, letting the artifact respond, and the catacombs trembled, walls cracking, dust falling like snow. The children of gods faltered, shocked, and I realized that the artifact had judged us worthy, for now. But then a scream split the air. The silver-haired boy had been struck, twisted by one of the dark figures, and I felt rage and fear crash through me. Shadows lashed out, protective, offensive, desperate. The girl shouted, "Focus! Protect him! Do not falter!" And I did not. I unleashed the full measure of my power, shaping the shadows, guiding them, weaving them into barriers, blades. A storm of force that threw our attackers back, crashing against the walls, disoriented, but not gone. The onyx-eyed boy retreated, his laughter echoing in the tunnels, promising this was far from over. We huddled around the artifact, breaths ragged, bodies trembling, aware that we had survived, but also aware that the cost had been close to unbearable. The silver-haired boy lay groaning, a faint glow on his wounds. From the girl's hands, "We've only just begun," she said, voice steady, scanning the tunnels. "The artifact is here, but so are they. And there are others, older, stronger, far more dangerous than the children we've faced." I looked at the artifact, pulsing like a living heart, and understood. We had survived the first test, but the war for power, for survival, for the legacy of gods, had only begun. And whatever came next, we would face it together or we would die. The pulse inside me hummed, a warning, a promise, a challenge. I was awake, and the world, every shadow, every god, every fragment of memory and power, would know it. We barely had time to catch our breath before the city erupted around us. The onyx-eyed boy and his followers were not finished. Their shadows slithered through the streets, twisting lampposts and asphalt into living weapons, hunting us with patience and cunning. The girl grabbed my arm, pulling me through narrow alleys, over fire-scorched rooftops, down into abandoned subways where darkness swallowed us whole. I could feel the pulse of the artifact beneath our feet, resonating with the energy inside me, guiding, warning, demanding. The silver-haired boy limped beside me, his hand glowing faintly as he tried to stabilize his powers despite the pain. "They're faster than I thought," he gasped. "We can't outrun them forever," I nodded, gripping the shadows that swirled around me, shaping them into barriers, blades, traps, anything to slow our pursuers. But then it happened, an ambush from within. The tall woman, the one with molten gold eyes, struck at our group, shadows lashing toward the girl. Betrayal! My stomach dropped. "Why?" I shouted, disbelief and rage cutting through my fear. She smiled, but it was cold, calculated. "The artifact belongs to those who take it," she said. "You are weak. I will not let a child decide what power belongs to the worthy." The fight erupted instantly. Shadows clashed, creating bursts of light that seared the walls of the tunnel. I threw myself between her and the girl, my power surging, shaping the darkness into a shield that absorbed her attacks. The silver-haired boy screamed in effort, lashing out at her with fire that hissed and burned, forcing her back. And all the while, the artifact pulsed, its glow intensifying as if it were alive, feeding off the conflict, reacting to our emotions, our fear, our anger, our determination. I realized then the truth. It was not merely a tool. It was sentient. It judged, it tested, it demanded proof of worth. Every strike, every act of courage, every surge of power was noted, absorbed, measured. "Stop!" the girl shouted, but I couldn't. The molten-eyed woman had to be stopped before she reached the artifact. Shadows coiled around my fists, my arms, my chest, a living armor, a living weapon. I struck, a surge of force that slammed her against the wall, breaking the ground beneath her feet. She screamed, rage and frustration mixing, but she was not defeated. "You think this changes anything?" she spat. "The real test has not begun." And suddenly, the artifact shone brighter than ever, blinding, pulsating like the heart of a god. I felt it inside me, flooding through veins and bones, whispering memories I had never lived, battles I had never fought, warnings and commands, a song older than the city. It showed me visions, flashes of the past, the original owners of the artifact, gods who had fallen, humans who had touched it and been destroyed, forces beyond reckoning. And then a path opened, a vision of where we needed to go, what we needed to do. The girl grabbed my arm, her eyes glowing. "It has chosen us," she said, "but it will not hold forever. We must reach the heart of the old city, the vault beneath the ruins. Before they do, there lies the true secret and the danger that could end us all." I nodded, swallowing fear and doubt, feeling the pulse of power, feeling the weight of responsibility, feeling the spark of awakening blazing through me. Behind us, the children of gods regrouped, their shadows writhing, plotting, relentless. And I understood the terrible truth. This was only the beginning. Every choice, every battle, every betrayal would shape not just our fates, but the fate of the city, the world, the remnants of the old gods. I was awake. We were alive. But survival meant facing the unknown, walking into darkness, and trusting each other even when trust had already been shattered. And as we sprinted toward the unknown vault beneath the ruins, the artifact pulsing with impatient light, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The veil had lifted, the gods had returned, and the war for power, for survival, for destiny itself, had begun in earnest.